There we go. Perfect. So, thanks everybody for jumping in who could. I know the other 2 people, we have 8 people. So there's you, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I knew 2 other people who aren't going to make it here. And I don't know about the other one, we'll see. I'll get them information if they need to. Couple things, so one thing is just the InBody that we just took. I'll give you just a quick rundown of some of the basic information on here, and if you do have any extra questions, let me know. That also being said, the company that provides these InBodies, if you just use the QR reader, it'll give you a basic rundown, much like I'm going to give you right now, but it'll be online, so it can clarify some of the pieces. But your general numbers are up at the top, so your height, your age, all the little stuff. When we took the test, I will say that we'll try to keep that pretty similar as we retake the test, just because there are changes. Like if we did this now at 6 a.m., you probably didn't have breakfast, you didn't have some other things, so there might be some slight differences there. So if we do, we'll try to keep it, but we'll also keep that in mind if we take the test at a different time. Beyond that, so body composition analysis, your total basic numbers, it breaks it down into what's your total water, and that does break down into what's inside your cells and what's outside your cells. Extracellular water and intracellular water. Like for example, I carry a lot of water in muscle cells. So your muscles have a ton of water in them right now. Actually, your water has a huge effect on muscle mass in general. So that's why hydration becomes very important, especially with exercise. It then breaks it down into what's your lean body mass. So everything that's not body fat or water, lean body mass. And then your total weight overall, which includes the body fat, and it breaks it down into what is that body fat mass. Below there, muscle fat analysis. This breaks it down into your total weight, your skeletal muscle mass you currently have, and the body fat mass. And typically what I look for there is that muscle mass is a little bit higher, and that muscle and body fat and total weight is a little lower on that. And if I was to draw just little points between those dots and connected the dots, that eventually over time I'm creating an arrow that points forward. Flat line, really solid, avoiding as much as we can a backward arrow. Keeping in mind, so everything where there's like a dash mark in there is everything, so that's what a doctor considers healthy normal based on your height and your age. Goes healthy normal for your height and your age is this right here. What healthy normal is for a doctor is a lot different than it will ever be for, I think, athletes and just general movement, because they take in like, okay, if I took everyone and then I put in a sum of what a perfect number should be, here's new age Barbie or something, and I'd be like, oh, okay, I don't really want that. But so it's like, for example, like if your muscle mass might be higher than 100%, that would not be like, ooh, I need to cut muscle. I'd be like, oh God, heck yeah, let's do that. Let's get that up there. Because that's going to affect how much we burn, how much we can eat, and all that fun stuff. Below that, worst name ever, obesity analysis. It's going to have your BMI, body mass index. It just lumps you into a category based on height and weight. I ignore that completely, especially for athletes, because if you have any amount of muscle mass, that can fuck that up. So, for example, like Arnold Schwarzenegger, in his prime, horribly obese, if you only put in BMI. It's like, oh man, look at all that muscle, you obese son of a... and then something that actually does matter, body fat percentage. Body fat percentage, the goal ranges for there, it typically is in the range of 10 to 20 for guys, is the healthy range. And then for ladies, it's typically in the 18 to 25%, or 18 to 28%. So that middle range tends to be about perfect. What that is exactly and what we want to be, it all differs a little bit, but that is a general good range. You can start to get into, like, as you get to the lower ranges of that, you start to pull into higher level athletes, and then if you get just under that, extreme athletes. Now, do not get the impression that an extreme athlete has very, very low body fat percentage. Most, like CrossFit, since we do that, CrossFit athletes in their elite levels are in the 8 to 10% range. If they're in 5% or below, that is bad, because they could potentially lose energy in workouts because of how low their body fat percentage is. If you're a bodybuilder, that's different, because you're there for like, I want 2.5 minutes of me at 0.5% body fat, and then I will get carried off stage and then fed Pedialyte until I can actually move again. So Keeping in mind, we need body fat. Body fat is important for the body. We just don't want to be in the excess ranges. Below that, segmental lean analysis, where you carry your muscle mass and is broken down left to right with arms, legs, and then where we carry most of it, which is trunk. And trunk, keeping in mind, we tend to call it like core, but that's going to involve like whole chest, stomach, butts included. Butts go into the trunk side, not the leg side. So when you see like trunk, a lot of times it's going to carry the most amount of muscle mass. It's also going to carry the most amount of body fat mass. And that's for guys and girls. So it's like always they're like, oh, pear shape versus apple shape. It's like, that's trunk. It's the same thing. So you can look, I will look that sometimes to see if left to right is relatively normal. I'm more interested in how it would affect you in life. So if you had a left side, my left arm is a lot less muscle mass than my right side. I would be more worried about like, okay, well, what's it like when you press? Okay, does one like press out and the other one has to lag behind? Then we have something defunct. Otherwise, if it's like things move fine, they move right, we naturally have some tendencies to have less or more muscle mass in each side. I have plates in my left arm from an injury in college. My muscle mass on that side is significantly less. I have not seen it affect how I do, but it's part of the reason is just there's a bunch of space taken up by metal plates. So down there at ECW/TBW, so this is healthy ranges for your extracellular water and intracellular water. And as they broke it down as total body water. So that's actually extracellular water as a ratio of total body water. And our goal is to kind of be within this range of 0.36 to 0.38, 0.39, 0.38 being kind of that perfect range. This is good to see sometimes because you might see some inflammation or something like that. Maybe it's either an injury or like maybe you eat something that your body flares up with. And you're like, oh, that's weird that it's high or low. Typically, I only see that to be very high on people who are in much higher body fat categories and stuff like that. Water can accumulate some of those areas. But usually healthy ranges, and we'll kind of pay attention to hydration as we go through here. You break it up to the top right, and the doctor is going to go, well, based on these healthy normals, this is what I want you to do. That may not always, I have seen it literally say lose muscle mass. I have literally seen it say gain muscle mass. So I would be like, shut up, doctor. Now, sometimes with body fat, we may want to pay attention a little more. Segmental fat analysis, so that breaks your fat down just like the muscle mass, arms left to right, legs, and trunk. And like most human beings, we're going to tend to carry that in the trunk. And then more importantly, visceral fat level. This is probably visceral fat level, and honestly, like your body fat percentage and lean body mass are probably the three main numbers I really care about here. Visceral fat, so it's not the stuff we get to see on the outside, not the fun stuff. It's the stuff on the inside that's pushing into our arteries, into our organs and all that stuff. And that's really correlated with heart disease. So an increase in that can correlate to higher heart disease rates. Perfect ranges, 4 to 6. And likely we can easily see some of this change over the next 6 weeks. 4 to 6, healthy still obviously under 10. Our scare range is when we start to get to 15 plus. But looks like, I would say most of us are pretty solid with that. We just got to see if we can't maybe cut down a couple points there. Do you have any general questions about the InBody? Totally fine. If you do, you can always email me at any point in time. Once we get all into the system too, you message me through HSN. That actually messages me faster than an email or anything like that. So as you start to use that, just keep that in mind as an option. So a couple things that I just want to go over today. First off, just general structure of the 6-week challenge. 6-week challenge. So every week we're going to have a separate challenge. And what that'll involve is, and you may have already received it, I sent out an email this morning at about just before 10 a.m. And it's the first week of challenge. So the first week challenge, and if you got your phone, you're welcome to take a look at it. This week is morning routine. We're gonna work on, and not just what breakfast is, but like setting up how can we set up our routine. Do I need to start brewing coffee early? Do I need to prepare food to have something, because I wake up and I go on the run. Like I gotta get going as soon as I'm up. Or do I have time to cook, and do I need to shop and make sure I prepare for some of those things? So the first week of that, every week there'll be an email, and I'm going to try to send them out here on Friday, the week before we're doing. So the next email is going to come out next Friday, this coming Friday. And that will be so that you have time over the weekend to see the email, gauge what the challenge is that week, and many of it's going to be routine-based this time, and then prepare as best as you can, especially on Sunday, for the week coming ahead. It will have some general topics of like things to think about, things to avoid. Usually it comes with a recipe just to give you some ideas. Because it's morning time, it's a breakfast recipe. Because it's October, it has pumpkin in it. Nailed it. And beyond that one, it will also have some challenges at the very bottom that I want you to focus on this week. So like this week, very simple stuff. A lot of it's going to be like, I want you guys to log into the system and I want you to share a message on the group forum. So a couple of things you'll have is you'll have the group forum that you can message on. I use that as one, I share information to the group in general, but it's also a place where people can put up their successes and their failures, or just like struggles in general. Man, I cannot get protein in the morning and I'm really freaking, it's like, what is it that I'm missing and how can I get it in? Someone might pop in and be like, man, I had that same struggle and I put collagen in my coffee and I found cottage cheese has a ton of protein in it and I like it. Or I use Greek yogurt, non-fat, and I add it. Like, people can share some things that might give some other people some ideas. Someone might be like, well, you know, I'm lactose intolerant. Oh, okay, then maybe some other options that we can go with that one. So use that forum. It is a really good source for, especially, I have several people who are doing this challenge who are ongoing clients of mine. And so they have done many of these things before, and they're following along because they enjoy the process, they want to see the group side and enjoy that, but they also have a lot of information they can share. So, so don't be afraid to hesitant to use that. I will also be messaging every athlete on Wednesday. So on Wednesday, at some point of the day, I will send you a message through the HSN app. Feel free to get back to me when you can. I think of it as an email. Like, it's like I look at emails and I don't send them back instantly at that time if it's on off hours. So it's you're like, can't do it. I'll deal with this in the morning. I'll send it back when I have some free time or something like that. Perfect. Send it back to me and then we can have a conversation. Many of it will be about the challenge of that week. How are things going with the week? How's your breakfast setups? Are you feeling comfortable with this? Where are you struggling? This is a point where I tend to ask questions. I'm looking for as much information and where you might be having some difficulties. So let me know because it's easier for me to develop an idea of how things are going with the more information you give me. So don't be hesitant to message me. You can message me at any other time of the week. I tend to work Monday through Friday, and I tend to work some weird hours. So sometimes I get back to you super early in the morning. Sometimes I get back to you super late at night. Because some days like Thursday or Friday, I'm done by like 1-ish. If you get to me on like a 3 o'clock and you're like, that's working hours. It may not be, and I might get back to you and you're like, wow, I got a weird message back at 4:30 in the morning on Friday because I've got to work. And I was like, cool, I can knock this out real quick. So just keep that in mind as we go through there. I do my best to stay off on weekends, but that being said, I sometimes look on there and send messages. So keep that in mind as you go through. A couple things I do want you to do. So you'll have the app of HSN, but I also have you downloading MyFitnessPal, and I do want you to try to log your food as much as possible. I will, once you link those two applications together, be able to see what your overall general numbers are for the day, for the week, for the month. I will also be able to, once you sync it, and I'll show you guys how to do that if you need to, how to sync those ones, I will be able to see specifics of your meal. Like, what did you have for breakfast? What did you have for lunch? What did you have for dinner? So if you do start to have some of those struggles, like, man, I can't hit proteins in the breakfast side, or at the end of the day, I'm struggling with protein. I'm struggling with keeping carbs low. I can go in there and say like, okay, so some of these things are happening here. Here's where you're missing it. This meal seems to be light and we need to boost it, et cetera, et cetera. So as you get through there, we'll have an idea of some of that stuff. Log as best as you can. When it comes to the MyFitnessPal thing, you do not have to pay for it. It is a free app, but it's gonna pop up as soon as you download it as being like, do you wanna like premium sizes for like $10 or $60 for the year or some stuff. Everything that we do uses the free side. So you don't need to actively pay for it. That being said, there are some cool things that you can use with that app if you pay for it. So if you do want to, feel free to. It's not gonna mess me up if you pay or if you don't. So keep that in mind. Perfect. A couple things that you might need. So I've written a few things up here that we're gonna go over today. One, some tools that you need. I would say things you need. One would be a scale and measuring cups. These are the two easiest ways to measure out food so that it's easier to put into your MyFitnessPal as you're logging it. The meal plan itself, which I've uploaded for most of the people today, is going to have measurements in there. So keep that in mind for, it might say like 4 to 6 range for chicken. If it's 4 to 6 ounces of chicken, if your goal is losing weight, then you may want to be on the lower side. If your goal is to sustain, in the middle. If your goal is to build muscle mass and still stay solid and lean, then I may be on the higher side. That also being said, your end numbers, which that's what I'm going to fill in today. So today you're going to get goal calorie, macro, so protein, fat, and carb goals. Your goal is at the end of the day to be near that goal as much as possible. And by near, I don't mean under. I mean, can I hit it or can I be within 10% up or down? And then fighting for consistency day in, day out. So keeping that in mind, that's the easiest way that I found to measure things. And when you are measuring things, all the stuff in the meal plan is cooked weights. So 4 to 6 ounces of cooked chicken. If it says 3/4 to a cup of rice, it means cooked rice. Especially when it comes to rice, because I cooked it and then all of a sudden I couldn't finish all the rice for my breakfast. That was crazy. Yeah, ate too much. So with that, some optional things that I find to be really, really helpful. Crock-pot and Instapot, just because one, you can cook things over the day or very quickly in those, and it's perfect for prepping food if you are prepping for the week or etc. for a certain meal. 3-compartment containers, not 100% needed, but they are really nice, especially if you're someone who takes lunches on the run. I use them for lunches. I use them for breakfast as well. And you don't need cheapy ones. They actually sell them on Amazon too, where you can get glass ones. I bought some glass ones. I do this enough that I bought glass ones that have clip-in containers. And I'll use those typically, just because I got tired of these looking nasty and grimy. But they are very helpful, not only for just the simple sense of being able to have your food on the run and stuff, but it also helps with like, if I don't quite know what some of the measurements are, I can set it up where, vegetables, meat, my starch, and then meat maybe has my fat in it, or I'll add it to something else. So something that can be helpful. Muffin tin. A lot of the recipes that we have in this, egg muffins, meatloaf muffins, like things that are very easy to prep and actually tend to be some of the more utilized recipes we have, require a muffin tin to cook with. So if you have one, heck yeah. And then last one, and this one I should actually probably put in the 100% necessary, is a water bottle. So make sure you have something that you can keep track of. Our goal is 80 ounces of water in a day. So keeping in mind, I typically break this down into meals and snacks. So if I have one at breakfast, lunch, dinner, and 1 glass in between each meal, I'm gonna hit at least 60 ounces if it's 12 ounces. If it's 16 ounces, I might even knock out my 80% or my 80 ounces and kill it. So keeping that in mind, if you could spread it out, that's best. I like to carry a water bottle around. This is my favorite kind. It has a cap that pops off. It has a built-in straw, but I can still just drink out of it. I love it. It's actually totally increased the amount of water I drink. But find something that works for you. Know how much ounces it is so that as you finish them, you'll know exactly how to. It's like this one's 32. I have to drink 2 plus a half or something if I wanted to. And we'll talk about hydration a little bit more. Goals for this thing. I want you to set your goals, and goal setting sessions, as we say, smart, measurable, or specific. Smart goals are specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time sensitive. We have 6 weeks. So what do I want in 6 weeks? Realistic things, typically if I'm looking to lose weight, 1 to 2 pounds a week. If I want to, so that could be potentially anywhere from the 6 to 12 pound range. And that also depends on how much do I have to lose, etc. It could be a specific body fat measurement. Maybe I want to lose 2%, something like that. I gauged how much weight I could lose, it's this much, and I thought about the percentages it goes through. Specific, so I know exactly what I'm shooting for. It's measurable. Body weight by pounds, easily measurable. We have the in-body. Percentage, we got the in-body. Is it attainable? I want to lose like 30 pounds this 6 weeks. It's like, I'd be like, oh, okay. Yeah, that's not going to happen. I don't want to be rude, but realistic. Let's just try to be something. And plus, I don't want to set myself up for complete and utter failure. Because it's like, if I'm halfway in and then I've lost 8 pounds, it's like, I'm not on track. And I'd be like, yeah, but you did great. But it sucks and I'm not. It's like, oh, so you're mad at awesome success. Like, Realistic and then time sensitive. We have 6 weeks to do it. Do you have an idea for your weeks? Do you have an idea at a halfway point? Do you have an idea for 6 weeks? What do you have as an idea for after this? What is your goals beyond 6-week challenge? Is my goal to continue this to a certain level? Am I training for something, et cetera, et cetera? Let's see, which ones do I want to go for first? Before I go into that, I did, and I have these, and let me get them out to you guys. I actually forgot to do that one. For anyone who's not here, they can come and grab these. They're just little challenge booklets, and they have much of the information I'm just going over right now. And just to give you kind of a general gist of it, this is going to have general information starting out with those tools and some ideas that you might look for recipes and stuff. The overall hierarchy, or we call it pyramid of athletics or of health. Goal setting ideas, and it breaks down our SMART goals. As you progress through this, it'll have a page for you to put in your goals, and then it starts to break down into your macros, your proteins, your fats, your carbohydrates, what those all involve, and what we're looking for to attain as we go through there. Lots of good information in here. It does have this like 4 weeks that are kind of set in here with snacking and stuff. You can take a look at it, but our challenge aspect, weekly aspects are going to be slightly different than what's in here. I just like this because it does break down a lot of the stuff. Take a look at it as you go. I'm just going to kind of go through it in my own pace as I like it. So as I said with the meal plan, so your meal plans are looking like this. 6 weeks. It has a 6 full week setup. Now that being said, with 6 weeks, it's going to have Monday through Sunday, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, snacks in between each meal. It's also going to have an idea for post-workout recovery side. And that'll typically break down into like how much protein, etc. you need and carbohydrates if you are exercising on that day. The numbers I'm going to set for you are based off of your exercise levels in general, so I do want you to stay consistent whether that's a day you work out or whether you don't work out. The only times I tend to say is like, oh, you might want to have a little bit more on that day, is if you had a day where you were like, man, I went out bike riding, I ended up getting lost, and I did like 3 hours of bike riding, and my kids ran me wild, and so I didn't rest, and I'm exhausted, and I worked my ass off. So on days like that where you exercise to an extreme, then yes, I'd be like, you need a little bit more that day. But otherwise, for the general sense, I want you to stay consistent day in, day out, as much as you can, trying to shoot for your goal macros with that calorie count at the end. The biggest thing that I see is the fault with that is that someone who eats too much one day will then eat too little the next day. And then maybe potentially, I'm crazy hungry. What happens? I ate too much the next day after that. My goal is to stay as consistent, as little waves as possible day to day. If you do have a day, I ate too much that day, don't compensate for it the next day. Don't screw the next you, the now you up today because of yesterday's you. So go back to status quo. See if you can't hit that number again and level off those numbers. I tend to think of it always, and this is the weirdest analogy I think, but I use it as like, if you are running a locomotive that you're filling coal into, if they give you the same amount of coal every single day, you're just gonna peel the exact same amount of coal into the fire and keep that thing burning. But if one day they give you too much coal, you're like, well, I'm gonna use as much coal as I can, but there's all this extra coal. And then the next day they give you just a little bit of coal and you're like, well, I didn't really save very much from yesterday. I just tried to use it. But well, fine. If they give me coal, I'm gonna start hoarding coal until I can't burn it. And then all of a sudden we're putting on fat, we're holding things on because the body has no ability to adjust to that. I want the body to think everything is always status quo and we're holding steady. So, as much as we can, try to stay as consistent as possible day to day. With this, as I said, it gives you snack ideas and snack options. Snacks are not required. If you are a person who doesn't snack in the day or doesn't snack between meals, then incorporate that into your dinner. Incorporate that into your lunch or your breakfast. Totally fine. Make those meals a little bit bigger. The only times that I see this as being a fault, for me specifically, I don't have a snack between breakfast and lunch. I feel great between those meals. I don't overeat at lunch. I feel great. If I don't have a snack between lunch and dinner, my typical lunch is around noon to 1. And my typical dinner is anywhere between 7 to 8 p.m. Huge amount of spans of time. If I don't have a snack within that time, dinner is going to become way more than I'm typically used to. On top of that, I might have a regular dinner, and then I might graze, or I might just start binge eating something, just because I'm hungry. I didn't eat enough, and now I'm starving. So I find that all of a sudden I overcame this deficit of one little snack of 150 to 200 calories by eating 500 calories a night. So keeping that in mind, if you see some of that happen, then, oh, maybe I need to incorporate this snack. But so like I learned that about myself. Every single day, Monday through Sunday, it typically has, there are some similarities, but it has different breakfasts, different lunches, different dinners. This is a guideline. This is not something set in stone. This is to give you ideas of what you want to have for breakfast. It is not for you to go, okay, Monday I need to have this, Tuesday I need to have this, and if I don't have that on Wednesday, I'm screwing up. And I've had people try to do that. It's going to lead to failure because it's just too many things. I eat the same thing for breakfast almost every single day. I eat 2 eggs, I eat 3/4 to a cup of cottage cheese, and then I have a fruit that changes. I was like, that's my variety. It's like I might have strawberries, I might have some grapes, I might have some raspberries. Who knows? It's so fun. So as you guys choose things, find things that work for you. If you're okay with repetition, like honestly, it's one of the easiest things. Like I've had people is like, I just make smoothies the same. I made 30. I did have someone do this. I made 30 smoothies. I just fixed them all up so that they're ready to blend, and I put them in my freezer. And I just pull one out, and I'm done. I was like, that's even more repetition than I'm used to. But high five, they had incredible success. They're like, it doesn't bother me. I'm like, some people it does. So finding things that you can shift in between there and make work for you is going to be key. As I said, all the things are measured off of cooking weight. So as you're choosing things, do so. You can change anything out here that it may say. It may say something like, for example, there's just right there, cedar plank salmon. Wow, I can't afford cedar plank salmon. What can I use? What other fish options can I use? Anything that works within there is a good solid protein. The only big ones that I would try to avoid shifting to is if I use, let's say the option is chicken, and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna do steak. It's like, I'm gonna choose a very lean meat and switch it out with a high fat protein. So if that's the case, you need to compensate somewhere else in the meal for where that fat may have came from. So if I did have, like, I was gonna have chicken, but I was gonna saute up some vegetables and some olive oil. Well, now I may have steamed vegetables with my higher fat contact protein. Cool. And we'll talk a little bit of that with our thing. There is, like, as you go through each week, it'll have some of the key recipes that are in that week, as well as, if you wanted to, grocery list some ideas for you to buy. Any of the recipes that have 3 asterisk marks on them, typically a lot of them are actually highlighted, so all you have to do is click them. This whole meal plan in HSN, you just click on it, it'll pop this up. You can print this off, or you can just go through it in there. And you can click on it, any of the 3 asterisk ones, it'll pop up the recipe, or you go do, it says it at the front right here, healthystepsnutrition.com/healthy recipes, and it'll pop up a list. You can even go through the list and be like, these are the ones I like, I'm gonna make my own meals. If you wanted, you literally don't have to follow this for at all. You could throw this off to the side and you'd be like, I'm gonna make my meals that I like already, and I'm just gonna start shifting the things I need to do to make them fit my goal intakes. I've had people do that totally fine. They're like, I don't really like these. I use the protein pancakes. That's like most people's things. I use the meatloaf muffins and the protein pancakes, but other than that, I make my own stuff and I make it work. Heck yeah, let's do it. That's awesome. When devising those meal sides, this is kind of like our goal breakdown as we go through. So we're following macros. Your macros are your proteins, your fats, your carbohydrates. Proteins typically is going to be coming from your meat sources. If you don't eat meat, then it'll be coming from your tofu, your seitan. It'll be coming from black beans. It'll be coming from a lot of other different options. So do keep that in mind, that our goals are still the same if we're not eating meat, but most people I know here that are doing this are eating meat. Let me know if you're not, and I can get you a vegetarian meal plan. The breakdown is going to look like this, where it's 30% of your intake is protein, 30% is fat, 40% is carbohydrates. One thing to think of that, just so as you look at your numbers, is relatively balanced. There's a little bit more carbohydrates, and I can say fats and carbohydrates can play. It doesn't have to be that, maybe I had 30% protein, 35. Oh, that's a cool day. That's awesome. These are your main energy sources, as long as these stay relatively consistent, and each one has a good amount of it. We're not like, oh, well, I'm just having 60% of that and 0% fat. I'd be like, no, that's bad. Fat is essential fatty acids, meaning your body requires them to live. So keeping that in mind as we choose, we need to have some of those things. Carbohydrates, especially if we're working out. I need carbohydrates. That's what's going to fuel a lot of my workouts. So keeping that in mind. Protein is the one that I'm like 30%. I want you hitting that no matter what. I do not want you to be like, well, you know, like I had like 10% protein and 90% fats and carbohydrates. I'd be like, no. This is your builder. This is the setup. This is the concrete to the whole setup. This is your energy sources. Make sure you fight for this 30% as much as possible. And it tends to be very hard for some. So that's going to take some time dialing in. When you look at your numbers, 1 gram of protein and carbohydrates is 4 calories. 1 gram of fat is 9 calories. So when you look at your numbers, it's going to look like fat is really depressed. It's going to be a much lower number. That being said, it's just because of how energy dense fat is. So we do have to be careful of how much fat we have. We also have to make sure that we have fat in our diet. So that can be tricky for some. They realize just how much fat can or how much fat they are having in theirs because of that gram ratio. So do be careful with fat, but obviously we're trying to keep it at a good steady setup. Typically, so when in doubt, I have like, let's say you're going out. We have a lot of things coming up, especially for the holiday. You have Thanksgiving, you have lots of crazy meals going on. So you might end up at places where you don't know what a lot of the foods are. This is when I use what we call the plate method. So the plate method, I cut my plate in half. It's very similar to this. I cut my plate in half, and I make sure half of that plate is some type of vegetable source. Beyond that, I cut the other plate in half, and I put my starch. So starches are your rices, your quinoas, your black beans, any of those like very calorically dense carbohydrates. So both of those, I should say, vegetables and starches, both carbohydrates. So the big thing is that we make sure that a bulk or the most of our carbohydrates are coming from our vegetables, or at least the bulk of the food in the plate is coming from our vegetables. The other quarter is our protein, and as you can see, our little circle of fat is in the protein because typically our protein carries our fats. If that's not the case, it's turkey. I'm having a bunch of turkey, and I'm not putting gravy on it, then I get to have some fat with whatever those starches are or whatever those vegetables are. I know that I'm having a high-fat protein. Well, my starch is getting soy sauce. I was like, I need something for flavor because starch is bland and gross. So I'm going to have some soy sauce. That'll help me get through it. Cool. Couple other things. So hydration, as I said, 80 ounces is our goal throughout the day. That does not include things like coffee, any sugary beverages. It doesn't include alcoholic beverages. So that, our goal is that 80 ounces is of water. Seltzer water, that works just fine as long as it's not the full source of your water. I was like, someone wants to put in a 12-ounce can of seltzer water as their hydration. Cool. If they want to put in 48 ounces because they had 4 cans of it, no. There's other issues that start to happen when it comes to carbonated waters at that amount. Having a little bit here and there, like everything, oh, my day's going really well. I have some extra fats and carbohydrates. I'm going to have a piece of chocolate. Hell yeah. We don't want to eliminate our happiness. We just want to make sure that we control it so that those things don't become in excess, and thus our bodies become in excess. So, hydration side with that. You don't have to quit alcohol if you are drinking alcohol. I just tend to tell people it is a lot easier if you don't drink it or you avoid it. Do avoid things that are the higher sugar contents. Beers. That's the hardest for me. Beers. So a lot of people typically do like beverages of vodka and soda with lime and stuff like that. Finding avoidance of those. Avoiding ones, especially like certain cocktails, because cocktails can be really, really high in sugar. Super high in sugar. So, a glass of wine here and there. Yes, a beer once in a while. I put it into the system, I make it work. Sounds good. But if you can, I find less is always easier for most people if they're drinking less. And then coffee, as I tend to say, and this is in the email as well, coffee doesn't count towards your things. Caffeinated beverages in general, I don't know your guys' schedule. You might be like, I work nights, like I work through the night. Then I'd be like, do what you gotta do to survive. Like, I understand that stuff. But in a typical general lifestyle, coffee should be something that we enjoy, or caffeinated beverages in the morning, and that we should cut those off in the noon. And the reason for that, not so much, and I have people say this all the time, I can drink coffee right before I go to bed. I'm like, your body can go to bed. Your body's, like your mind can, okay, cool. But your processes in your body are still burning off caffeine. Caffeine, the half-life of that is in the 12 to 18 hour range. So we're still burning that stuff off as we're getting to sleep. So I try to avoid it past noon, or else my body's processes are still going to be affected in sleep. Sleep is one of the huge things that are affecting weight loss, stress levels, etc. So in a full lifestyle shift, keep in mind that yes, we're focusing on nutrition, and hydration, I should say, is part of the nutrition side. Nutrition and hydration, but exercise, sleep, and stress relief are the other major aspects that affect everything in your body, including how your body processes calories, food, etc. So, keeping that in mind as much as we can, we still obviously look to get a good amount of sleep, 7, 6.5 or more would be the hope. 6.5 on the minimal range, 6.5 or more of sleep. Stress relief, things that you can do that allow you to relax and breathe. Walk the dog, unless you have a puppy like mine, not stress relief at all. But finding some option that gives you that little bit of breathing room, as well as exercise. If you can exercise, always will be better. But exercise is the additive to a healthy meal, a healthy lifestyle that nutrition brings. Sounds good? Yeah, it's like they always say, like, you can't outwork a bad diet. It's true. I can status quo a medium diet with exercise, but I can't outwork it. Perfect. Yeah. No, I do CrossFit. I'll be totally fine. So, going forward, a couple things. Logging with food. If you guys have any questions with MyFitnessPal, we can go over that. I'll probably end up just ending the video, and if anyone in the video side needs help with MyFitnessPal, talk to me. I do have a video I can send out for that gives you a good breakdown. A couple of the things that you'll need to do. So after this, I'm going to send out your goal numbers. Calories, proteins, fats, carbohydrates. You will go into MyFitnessPal, and you'll put that into the goals section. So if you actually go into the far bottom right, more, there's a section that says goals, calories, carbs, fats. You click on that, and then you can change out the goal side of those. And what I will do is you put your calories in, and you basically just go right in and you put 30% protein, 30% fat, 40% carbohydrates. Boom, 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 done. One thing I would recommend with MyFitnessPal, there's a section in the more that says track steps. Do not track steps. What that's doing is that it will artificially inflate the numbers I set for you. And if your numbers are already set for your exercise levels, then I go, for example, I went on a hike to the Dungeon of Spit once. I walked 11 miles on the beach. I got back, and it said I had 1,100 extra calories I could eat. At first, I was all like, man, I didn't eat anything today. And then I realized what had happened, and it was bumping this number up. Now, should I eat more? Yeah. I just spent 4 or 5 hours walking 11 miles on a beach. I definitely need something to recover from that. But I don't need 1,100 more calories for that. So gauging it appropriately, obviously having a little something extra as you go through there, but I would recommend that you don't record that so that it doesn't, because I've had people like 3 months and like, I just don't know why. I've been eating too much calories because that keeps happening to me. Once you have those two things set up, as you log food, if you go to the very bottom of the food log section, there will be a thing that says nutrition, and you can click on nutrition, and it'll have 3 sections in there. And the far right one says macros. And when you click on the macro side, it'll break down a pie chart of your day. And it'll say how much protein is there, how much fat, and how much carbohydrates. Just below that, it'll say the grams of each and the percentage of each of those. I use that section to gauge my day appropriately as I work through it. So if you have breakfast and perhaps a snack after breakfast, I put those things in there, and I can go down to nutrition, and it may tell me your protein level's at 20%, your carbohydrates are at 50%, and your other ones are at 30%. I was like, fat, I nailed it, 30%, whoo! But I'm down on protein and high on carbohydrates. So I know in my next couple meals, I need to start upping the protein intake, and I need to start cutting my carbohydrate intake while maintaining my fats as best as possible. So that's a good way as you start to log to also see where you're at through the day. to see if that's going to line up well with your goals. Perfect. The logging side, once you get used to it, it becomes easier. It keeps a history of all the things that you've already logged. So once that, you can multi-add things very easily. If you're like me, you eat the same breakfasts. Once you add about 2 or 3 breakfasts that are basically the same thing, MyFitnessPal's like, are you gonna have yesterday's breakfast? And you can just swipe right and you can be like, cool. You can take it'll actually have a thing that'll go to a picture so you can do barcodes. Make sure that if you do the barcode option of a food, that you are putting in the appropriate serving size of that food. It will pull up the initial serving size on whatever the bag is. For example, I buy sometimes for snacks 2 hard-boiled eggs in a package from Central Market or Safeway. They sell them at Costco as a giant box of them too. They're great. They're a great snack. If you put it on the barcode, it's going to be like, did you have 1 egg? I'm like, I didn't open this and eat 1 egg and throw the other one away. Like, I can't reseal this. I ate 2 eggs, so I have to go in there and change that. So, especially with like things like, I had a bag of chips. I open there and click the thing. 1 serving size was how many chips? Like 3, because they're chips. Then I have to go in there and change that appropriately. Cool. Do you have any questions? Pretty simple as we go forward. So some of the big things that I just say is like, we start out just moving our feet. So I'm not worried about like, okay, you leave here today, and now I gotta see if I can nail these numbers perfectly. No, the first week, obviously the challenge aspect is to start our days off great. Like if we can start the day off well, we can start working towards a full day in the end. But your goal is just to get your legs moving. So I wanna start logging food. I wanna start seeing where some of those numbers are. Yes, I wanna do my best to see if I can kind of hit around these ranges, because sometimes I find people just like, oh, well, turns out like it wasn't that hard. I just had to change like a few things, and I found out kind of roughly what my numbers are. But I just want you to start to log kind of how the foods you are that you eat, and then as you log them, you'll start to see what are some of the trends that we're seeing overall, and we can start to compensate for those ones as we hit the end of the week. And then hopefully we become more consistent over the 6 weeks. If we just go like tomorrow, I need to hit these, well, Monday was where our official start is. Monday, I need to hit these numbers so perfectly, and then we don't, I don't want you to stress about it. That's the big thing. I want to start to bleed into this as much as we can. So, big things, as I tend to say, is our major goals as we start. Log your food, put in all your numbers and stuff, and then make sure that you drink, as best as you can, 80 ounces of water a day. If you can, the other thing is eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Just because I find a lot of people don't eat breakfast. Breakfast is really good for you. It's the most important meal of the day. So, try as much as you can. 3 meals. If we need to incorporate snacks, we can find out if we need to later as we go through. I guess one other thing that I didn't really go over, working out, exercise. I do want you to have snacks after you exercise. So make sure that you have a protein source and a carbohydrate source after you work out. Most proteins nowadays, they leave them as clean protein. If you see something that says after workout or post-workout protein, that it might have a carbohydrate in there that'll compensate appropriately for you. But most proteins are protein, minimal fat, minimal carbohydrate. So adding something to that. Okay, I'm gonna have it with coconut water or something. Do I have to have a protein shake? No. Protein shakes are just easy ways of getting in protein. After a workout, I had a little baggie of 4 ounces of chicken and a little thing of rice. Daily, hell yeah, that's awesome. You don't have to follow this. A lot of times I do that where I have a protein shake because that's easy for protein. Boom, I'm back to an apple or a banana because I'm just looking for 20 or so grams of protein, 25 to 30 grams of carbohydrates, depending on the workout. Questions? Let me know. Send me a message. You get into HSN. There will be a little notification that says how to link MyFitnessPal with HSN. Once you get that done, send me a little message that says like, hey, I got in here. I'm doing good. Or, what did you say about? And I'll get back to you as best as I can. I'm going to try to get through some messages today. Just be wary, it's my wife's birthday today. I cleared this a month ago. I was all like, so I'm going to be doing this challenge. It's going to set up on your wish. She's like, I just want to relax a little bit in the morning. I was like, okay, I'll be back at like 1. Perfect.
When you want questions, you go into the like little fist bump thing and write them in there. Is that what you're saying?
No, so in MyFitnessPal, so the little
the HSN thing.
or yeah, sorry, HSN. If you hit that little Kids At CrossFit guy, that's where you'll text message me in.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So the little Kids At CrossFit symbol that's on the HSN app, it's in the bottom right. If you click on that, that's where all the messages go in and out. Message me through there. That's the easiest and fastest. It's the only thing that I have that actually sends me a notification and pops up on my phone other than text message. My fitness or my I was about to say my Facebook Messenger, yeah, doesn't even do that because I'm like I might get to that when I see it. Perfect. Heck yeah. Got those, I got these. I will go in, the only thing I need to set up right now, since I got everything else in there, is to set up your numbers. So you'll see your numbers pop up here in the next hour. And then if you have questions beyond that, just let me know. Yeah. This is a good way to kick it off, but I never feel like it's ever enough. So there's always more that I could talk about, but dang, that would be boring. It's like we're already tired and cold already. Perfect, and I will